The power of compression. So, as you grow as a young leader, a young professional, an entrepreneur, as just a leader in general, one of the things that you'll see over time is you will have to do more in less time. And at first, it might sound untenable. You're like, how am I going to be able to do this? Well, at the end of the day, what you really end up doing is practicing this skill that not a lot of people talk about, which is compression. So, what is compression? You're basically taking the task that you have in front of you and distilling it down into its key parts and compressing it and compressing it and pressing down on it until you're like, okay, this thing I can get done faster and faster and faster because now you have the neural pathways. For those of you that are brain science nerds, you have the neural pathways that are there and you become more efficient at it, and also you become more effective at it, obviously, if you're picking the right thing. So why is compression so valuable? Well, think of a car compactor. It's much easier to stack 2 or 3 cars that have been really compressed into pancakes than it is to put one oddly shaped car on top of the other. It leads to standardization and allows to better throughput, which is basically a fancy way to say you're going to become more productive by compressing your tasks. And with the founders I work with through coaching, I know one of the things that we're talking about when they're scaling is this idea of how do I scale myself? How do I grow? How do I still get the things done that I need to get done while more challenges and more things are going to be added onto my plate that I can't anticipate? Compression is one of those things, right? It goes hand in hand with batching. For those of you who haven't heard about batching tasks, effectively you kind of group all the same tasks in one day. I know Tony Robbins does a version of this with his RPM system. I know Sarah Blakely talks about it of, she'll have one day of the week where she focuses on a product, right? For me, I use Thursdays as my meeting days and I get a lot of my admin work done. That's batching. Now, in that batching, that one day where I'm getting that stuff done, I have compression of going, hey, here's 7 minutes. Here's a one pager that I must have so I can then focus in on the key details. Another example of compression you'll see in business is an executive summary. Effectively, it's like, okay, I might have 15 pages that I need to read through, but give me the summary that I can get the clear nuggets and bits out. Another thing is having clear templated agendas is a form of compression for a meeting. Going, okay, here are the variables that we're going to fill in. Here's what we need to get to. And it used to take me an hour to get through the agenda. Right now, it's going to take 15 minutes. So for those of you that want to actually use compression as a practical skill, here are 2 things to focus on. Take a task that, let's say, pick a meeting that you have in your calendar that it takes about an hour to get through, but it drags on. Compress it to 50%. Aim to take that meeting, and that was an hour meeting, and push it into 30 minutes of time. And 30 minutes of meeting time, because you can say, okay, I'm going to prep 20 minutes because, let's say Joe asked these 3 questions that we spend 15 minutes to 20 minutes of the meeting just trying to answer it, going back and forth. Nothing's really productive. Instead, you spend 20 minutes ahead of the meeting and say, you know what, I already did this work. Here's a draft. And you share it with them. And effectively, if there are any approvals or meetings or next steps, you do that. So that's one challenge for you, your compression challenge. Second thing you can focus in on is what is something that you've done often and create a template for it. So for me, it could be, I'm working on just making things a little smoother throughout the day by saying, okay, I gotta get a quick workout in. Okay, instead of getting a half-hour workout, how can I get a 15-minute workout? How can I get a 3-minute workout and bring a level of intensity to it? So yeah, when I have the time to get an hour, it'd be nice. But if I can just do the 5 or 15-minute, it's a lot faster. And we're talking about removing guilt as well here, because you no longer feel guilty about not doing that thing. Instead, you check the box and you can always expand when you have more time, which is the key power of compression, expanding when you have more time, which at the core breaks down into, if you have the time for an hour, you can always go to an hour. But if you design for 6 minutes and say, okay, I'm going to get this done in this time for 6 minutes, that is game changing. Because if you have the time, you can expand to the hour. But if you don't, you still got the work done that you needed to get done and the core of it. For those of you who are familiar with the 80-20 principle, part of this has the 80-20 principle component. In compression, you're really focusing on what is the 20%? What is the key thing? What is the key two things that I need to do to get this done? For those of you who have read The One Thing, same idea. It's the one thing that you need to get done. The Tim Ferriss fans out there, right? It's the lead domino that he talks about that knocks everything else over. And when you put yourself on a shorter time frame using Parkinson's law, for those of you who are nerds from the 4-hour work week, that's what you're doing. You're saying, okay, in these 5 minutes, I'm going to do this thing to move it forward. What's nice about this is for those of you who have read Tiny Habits, you're effectively doing your starter step. You're saying, okay, in these 5 minutes or in this 30 seconds or in this 2 seconds, I'm going to focus on this thing and get that thing done. And naturally, you start a chain of behavior because you've already built momentum. So all in all, in summary, right, compression is a valuable skill that will only accrue value over time. That means start investing in it now, because 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now, you're going to appreciate it more and more because it's going to allow you to do more with less. Second key component of compression, right? There are 2 compression challenges I've given you in this audio note. Check it out and try them, right? One is take an hour-long meeting and compress it down to 30 minutes. Do your prep work ahead of time if you need to. Have templated actions. Then from there, the third component and the most valuable component is understanding that the power of compression is if you design for 6 minutes, you can always expand to 60 minutes when you have more time. Versus if you design for 60 minutes and you only have 6 minutes, a lot bigger challenge. So all in all, right, we covered the power of compression. I'm excited to hear what you have to think, and thanks for listening.